A lot of photographers get stuck charging really low rates and competing on price, and this sucks because no one wants to compete on price. We want to actually have a package that is unique to us, so it's not really comparable to other photographers, where we no longer get compared on price but on value.
Hello and welcome to the Luma University podcast. I'm your host, Jeahn, and today we're joined by Chris Pieta. I'll give him a proper introduction here in just a second, but this episode is the one you want to listen to if you want to scale your photography business from a few $100s per shoot to thousands and even 10,000s per shoot. If you're wanting to go beyond that, Chris has some amazing opportunities for you, but I hope that you'll enjoy this episode and you glean a lot from the business side of things. I know that I need to hear this and I'm excited to learn alongside you, so let's go ahead and dive in with Chris Pieta. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Luma University podcast. Today, I'm joined by Chris Pieta. If you have ever seen someone's portfolio and said, how come they're getting more business than me when their photography sucks, but mine's great and I'm not getting any business? Well, it's because you probably haven't talked to Chris Pieta or a business mentor like him. So that is what we're going to do today. We're going to just chat about what he has to provide, his knowledge and wisdom to you guys on the business front for creatives, which is something I personally struggle with as well. So without further ado, let's get started. Chris, thank you for joining me. Let's start out chatting about a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thank you for that intro. That is a perfect summary of kind of what I do here. I like to start my story right after I graduated from college. It's like 2016-ish. I graduated with a degree in chemistry, went straight into corporate America, and like by year end decided, okay, this is not for me. So I started like consuming a ton of podcasts, books, all things like entrepreneurship. How can I build something for myself? Like on the car ride home, I'd listen to audiobooks like 4 Hour Work Week, Gary Vee's podcast, like the Tim Ferriss Show, all that stuff. Because I didn't have any like entrepreneurs in my life, didn't have anyone who built their own business, and figured, okay, this corporate America thing isn't for me. I want the freedom to do stuff myself. So I started consuming a lot of content, just like everyone else. And it wasn't until years later where I actually like took the plunge and went all in on that, but we'll get into that. Around that time, I also picked up my first camera. So 2017, I was taking a trip to Japan with my friend and figured I'd want something nice to kind of capture the entire experience. I bought a Canon T6i on like Black Friday. This was like November 2016, bought the camera. 2017, went on that trip. I fell in love with photography on that trip. Didn't really have any creative experience before that. I was like a STEM major, like science, math, all that stuff. And growing up, I was just like the kid playing with Legos, being super curious about the world. And creativity kind of came in while I was working that job, needed like a creative outlet. And photography was that for me. So I spent the next couple of years just living here in Chicago, going out on weekends, going out after work, learning how to capture photos. For the most part, my portfolio was like all cityscape stuff. And I was consuming a lot of Peter McKinnon back then, learning how to edit, learning how to capture that sick light, all that stuff. And it wasn't until like 2019, got super fed up with my 9 to 5. I was like, okay, well, this photography thing, I'm good at it. People tell me I'm good at this, but I don't have like the confidence to start a business. Like that just seemed super scary to me. Like I'm an introverted guy. Growing up, I was like the shy kid, played video games all day, didn't really have any friends, kind of doing my own thing. So starting a business seemed really scary. And the thing that I told myself that would like kind of give me the confidence to start a business was doing something that I perceived as harder, which at that time was like doing an Ironman triathlon. So signed up for that, trained for a year, pretty much like 6 days a week, 2 to 5 hour trainings every day. And September came along, did the race. I was like, okay, cool. I can start a business now. So October 2019, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this work no matter what. And about 10 months later, went full time with photography. And then from there, it's just kind of snowballed.
That's crazy. An Ironman. Okay, let's dive into that just a little bit, just because, I mean, there's so much we can like pull from your backstory, but maybe we'll jump ahead a bit in my notes I have here. You mentioned that doing the Ironman was your kind of breakthrough, I guess, to like your mental breakthrough, that you said, if you can do this, then you can run a business, which I think is cool. And maybe I could take inspiration from that. But maybe we can talk a little bit about fitness and how that interplays with your everyday life. Because I see that on Instagram, you're posting daily about this 365 kind of thing. Can you talk about that and how that has impacted you from a success standpoint?
Yeah, it's been kind of a big cornerstone of my life for a while. And yeah, by no means do you have to do an Ironman to start a business. That's like what I needed to tell myself, because I had very low confidence back then. But through this kind of like fitness journey, my confidence has built up, and that has translated to like all different areas of my life, from like business to relationships to everything. And right now I'm doing something called hashtag sweat every day, where I post a workout, or I do a workout every day, and then I share it on Instagram, really to show others that, hey, fitness is something that can really change your life. And we've had a lot of people like join this like sweat everyday train, which basically means doing a 30-minute workout every single day, no excuses. And by doing that, it kind of makes it a habit, a non-negotiable. So you don't really have to think about whether you want to work out today or not. It just happens by default. And I started this last year in 2024, and we had at least 100 people join in on this. Like, people would message me saying they started their fitness journey. Not everyone did sweat every day, but lots of people just started either running, lifting, doing yoga, going on walks, like just doing something to move their body. And seeing that impact was really cool. So I'm sharing this like on my stories every day to help inspire others, that so they can like start this journey. Because I think health and fitness is going to be super, super important, especially going into the future with AI, which we can get into later.
Sure.
But it's just been such a cornerstone of my life, and it's contributed to so much of the success I have today, honestly.
That's crazy. Okay. So you mentioned, I wanted to talk about this too. I saw it just on your story and you mentioned it again, how exercise is a non-negotiable. For me, everything's negotiable. As a business owner, I want to make my own decisions. I do my own things. Obviously, we still have to serve clients. So there's things we don't have that freedom to always be doing everything we want. But how do you mentally take non-negotiable and make it real for you? Because I feel like I wouldn't be able to do that without some other level of understanding what non-negotiable means.
Yeah. So I'm a really big systems guy. Like, a lot of my life is kind of systemized, where like a lot of people look at me and think I have a ton of discipline and I just stick to all of my commitments and all of that, and I never procrastinate. But honestly, like, the opposite is true. And I've recognized that I'm like pretty prone to like procrastinating, and I think I am disciplined and really consistent, but that is by design, not by default. So like, I've recognized that I easily fall into these traps of like procrastinating or doing things that I know aren't good for me long term. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of like pre-programmed certain parts of my life that I just do them without question. Like, I've designed my week, my year, that certain things have to happen no matter what. And it's like a non-negotiable that I established in like this state of mind where I was like planning my year, planning my goals. So that like that level of Chris planned out everything that will lead me to the most success, so that when I'm like on a Thursday afternoon in my office, don't feel like working and want to scroll my phone, well, I like go back to that other version of myself that planned out these goals and designed these systems so that I would like reach these ambitious goals. Because I know that I will procrastinate, I will lose discipline unless like I make it a truly non-negotiable part of my life. And this sounds kind of crazy, but the whole mindset behind like the working out every day, like, these aren't intense workouts. I'm not going on like 20-mile runs, 10-mile runs, or anything like that. It's by design that I have to work out every day. So the workouts aren't that intense, but they are consistent, and that consistency compounds. So these are like 30, 45-minute workouts. They energize me, they don't drain me, and they force me to make decisions outside of this that also contribute to me having to work out every day. So like, making poor decisions the day before will lead to a worse workout the next day. So I can't make those bad decisions. So that's kind of a long response to your question, but that's kind of how I think about all this stuff.
No, that's good. That's really good. So you would say that the consistency of exercising daily trickles down through your life into your business, into your mindset, into your daily routine, because you rely on systems to do the things that you want to do, basically.
That's spot on. Yeah.
Okay. Right on. Okay, cool. I got that. I think that we're actually very similar, you and I. I like to think of myself as very introverted. Although my views on that might be changing. I guess it depends on who I'm around. Because when I was at Imaging USA, I've been the last 2 years, I get so energized. And when I'm talking to people like you on the podcast that I can relate to, I get so energized. But in other situations, I drain. Like if I can't relate to someone, or they're not photographers, or they're not driven, I can't small talk. So maybe there's a combo of that, but that's really good. Yeah. Maybe I think it'll be really helpful for me and the listeners as we progress through our talking points, going through systems and asking like what has worked for you, because I struggle to find systems that work really well for me. The best I've found so far as like project management is like Notion and building my own system, but I'd be interested to talk about that at some point. But hopping back a little bit into some of the things I've noticed from you recently since we've been chatting was you mentioned you want to be more vulnerable. And I think that's a really honorable thing, but maybe we can dive into that a bit. And maybe we can start off by talking about the business that you started that most people may not know about. You started a business in college, and I haven't heard about this yet either. So I'm excited to hear, what was that like? And you said you failed magnificently, which is awesome because failure leads to success. So let's dive into, what was that business you started in college, and how does that tie into this topic of vulnerability?
Yeah, that's I'm glad you brought that up. I know from our Instagram DMs we were chatting about that a bit. Yeah, so this is a business my friends and I started. It was the year right after we graduated college. We were all into kind of like weightlifting fitness, specifically like Olympic style weightlifting with like clean and jerks and snatches and all that. And it was 4 of us at the start, eventually 5 of us. But the company was called Prol Weightlifting, and I don't think we have a website up still. I think there's an Instagram page or something. But the idea was, we're all into weightlifting. There's not a good knee sleeve out on the market. So like something to like compress your knees, keep them warm for like squats and all that. So we wanted to start like selling these online. And my friend like negotiated some deal with like some Chinese supplier, shipped them to the US. We got some samples made, and we put up a website. Each of us had like a role in the company. We had like a CEO, CMO, CFO. It was just like a few of us. And we had no idea how to run a business. We figured we'd put stuff up online, make a cool website, people will buy it. And that just didn't work out for us. I do think the idea was solid. I think where we lacked was execution, because we were all working 9 to 5. No one was really taking this like seriously as it's going to replace our income or anything. So we were putting in like maybe 4 or 5 hours a week each. And that, as you know, that's not enough to grow a business. So eventually it fizzled out. But it was a really fun learning experience, just like figuring out how to get a website going. My role in the company was the marketing. So we had an Instagram page where we posted like historical weightlifting photos there as like the marketing channel. We did a few things with some local gyms, but again, I think we had a lot of ideas floating around, but what we didn't have was execution. So we just didn't do the work required there. So over time, the business fizzled out. And I wanted to bring up one thing specifically about this. So I brought this up with you because I was going through like my old photos from like it was 2017, I think. And I was at like the US National Olympic like weightlifting meet. It was here in Chicago. And I completely forgot that I did that. But it was me like 6 months into photography, terrible with the camera, didn't know how to take a great photo. And I had like this, I like cold emailed the marketing director, or like the meet director that was putting this on. Didn't get responses. Eventually they responded to me and said like, hey, just come to this address at this time. And when I arrived there, it was like the media briefing for this event. And everyone there had like these $10,000 camera setups, legit like newspaper publications. And I'm here like with this $500 camera with a kit lens, trying to like talk to these people there. No one took me seriously at this meet. Photos were okay, but I'm like shooting on this little thing next to someone like on a 200 millimeter like telephoto lens. But I was just remembering this story and like thinking back to, I just like put myself out there. I had like this camera, figured I would email these people. It paid off. Like I got into this room where I definitely didn't belong, but that was a big growing opportunity for me. And I think that principle has really translated into all like future business things I ended up doing, because I saw that experience and just a kind of fun memory there.
So in a way, I think I can relate to this as well. You've surrounded yourself or put yourself into a situation without any experience because that was something you wanted to pursue, and that led to opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Putting yourself in rooms you don't think you belong in.
Yeah. So talking about, I guess, a sense of safety and security or whatever, we should probably talk about what it was like when you left your full-time job, because you did it kind of right at the height of COVID, I think, right? If I'm wrong, let me know. And I think there's this sense that there is such a thing as job security, but in a world such as the one we live, I think it's almost actually safer if you build your own business and multiple revenue streams. And my job was suddenly pulled out from under me in 2022. And I was afraid of the job security thing. But since that happened, it was the best thing that happened to me, because now I have, my success is my success and my failure is my failure, and it's nobody else's, and I can own that. And I think in a way, job security is a fraud when we think about it in a traditional sense. So what's your experience with that? Because you quit your job. I was relieved of my job.
Yeah. I agree with you with the whole job security thing. I was talking with my wife the other day about this, and she brought up how she feels like she has more security now too, than like before. And like, I think that is true in like the current world that we live in. Like things are changing so quickly, especially with like all these new technologies coming out, where you don't know if you'll have job security. So the upside of being an entrepreneur is you can be adaptable to the coming changes, and you can build the skill sets that will make you thrive in whatever the world like turns into. So I do agree that like their job security is kind of like an illusion. And when I quit my job, I did not think that way. I thought like having a job that's stable, that's secure. If I stay at a company, I'll be there for like 20, 30 years. Cause when I was at those like 2 corporate jobs I had out of college, I would see people there who have been there for like 30, 40 years. And like, I told myself like, I never want to be in this job for that long. Like there's nothing wrong with that by any means. It just wasn't where I would fit in. So I was so scared of like staying in a place that I didn't fully like enjoy and didn't have the freedom that I wanted. So going back to your question about like me quitting my 9 to 5 and actually going all in on my passion, it took me a really long time to build up the courage to do that. I quit my job in July of 2020, and up until that point, I was building my photography business, I would say like pretty seriously for like 10 months. And like during that like 10-month stretch, this was like right after the Ironman to quitting my job. I was putting in at least like 3-4 hours a day, every single day, working on the business. So I would wake up before work an hour or two, lunch break, and then after work, put in some more time. And this was happening every single day. And I was just like learning what works, what doesn't work, how to get clients, what kind of pitches work, what I should be doing. And it was essentially like 10 months of trying every single day to land clients without like any success. And the other day I like calculated how much time I put into this, and it was like at least 900 hours of like time put in with like seemingly no results. And then July, I landed like my first client, like my first real client with this like with the system I was like developing. So I took a bunch of like courses, worked with like coaches and all that, and like pulled together like their best stuff into like this like client outreach system I was trying to build, which involved like cold outreach and booking calls with clients, sending proposals, pretty standard like sales process stuff. But it just wasn't clicking up until like July, and I landed my first client with that. It was a $500 client, and I quit my job with that just that one
Wow.
client because I had so much confidence that the system I was developing worked because I was just putting in so much time into it. And then once I got that proof that, okay, this works, I figured it would work 100 times again. So I just had the confidence then to quit. It was a combination of also feeling burnt out from my main job, and I had like some savings saved up. So I had enough runway for like 3 or 6 months there. But I essentially took a bet on myself, and it's paid off.
Hey, it's Jeahn here, and I just wanted to interject in this conversation with Chris to tell you about my Proven Portrait Lighting Techniques e-guide. It's completely free. The reason that I'm offering it is because people continue to ask me how to make their lighting really great, and this guide just covers everything, all of the fundamental light positions for 1 light, 2 light, 3 light setups, and more, and really great illustrations that are super clear to see and understand what exactly is happening with the lighting. So it's a free guide. Head over to lumauniversity.com. All you have to do is pop in your name and email address, and I will shoot that guide over to you directly. And a lot of people love it. It's been viewed over 1,000 times. I'm getting great feedback from it. So I hope that you will as well. And if you are really interested in going further with your lighting, this is a great first step. So supplement your business that we're learning with Chris with the lighting from that lighting guide real quick for free. And let's continue our conversation with Chris Pieta. So let's jump into the next segment here that we have in my notes about getting into actually creating business and sales and client acquisition and all that stuff. This is something that you're really good at, and I think this is the main reason people will be interested to listen to the podcast, because just like me, it's not something that I'm interested in. It's not something I'm passionate about, but it's something that's really important. And I think I can learn just as much as everyone else watching. So let's dive into your systems. You're a systems guy. Client acquisition is all about systems for you. So what does that look like as just an overarching view to get started?
Yeah, when I built my business, my photography and videography company, I really fell in love with the business side of it. And that's kind of why I transitioned to what I'm doing today, which is helping others build out these systems in their own businesses. A high level overview of what this looks like. And I would say this is like any creative business. So whether you're a photographer, videographer, designer watching, this will be applicable to anyone. But there's really 4 parts. And the first thing is kind of your offer. What are you actually selling? What value are you providing to clients? Are you doing photos, videos, design work? How does that impact them? What is the value exchange there? Once you know that, the second thing you have to figure out is your marketing. So how are you getting this offer in front of clients? So are you sending outreach emails? Are you messaging people on LinkedIn? Are you posting content every single day on Instagram to build a client or a following on there? Are you posting YouTube? Like, what are your marketing channels? And once you figure that out, the next part is how are you converting interested people into paying customers? So marketing itself doesn't get you clients. It gets people interested in what you sell, but it doesn't necessarily convert them into paying customers. So that's where like a sales process comes in. And I'm an introverted guy, so like the sales process that I follow isn't very like pushy or super salesy. It's more about like matchmaking. So like making sure that, or like more so figuring out what the client's problems are, and then positioning yourself in a way that you're the right person to solve their problem. So you're hopping on sales calls, but they're really discovery calls where you're asking questions about them, how you can help them and their problems, and then like pitching yourself as the solution to that. And then the fourth step is the fulfillment side, the production side. So like once you land them as a client, how can you have like the best customer experience possible and get them the results that they're after so that you retain them for as long as possible and that they refer their friends to you and you get good reviews. So that's like a simple 4-step process. Happy to dive into any of these super in depth, but I will say that most creatives skip steps like 2 and 3 and then wonder why they don't really have a business, because they'll create this portfolio, beautiful website, awesome Instagram page, whatever, and then they want step 4. They want to start working with clients. The problem is like no one knows they exist. Like no one's going to your website, so you're not getting interested people. And then even if some people are interested, there's no sales process to convert them into paying customers. So they're skipping the most crucial steps here. And I think that's why I want to fix in the creative world, because if you're good with a camera, you can do this full time. And my mission is to enable as many creatives as possible.
That's cool. You're calling me out, man. That's exactly what happened to me and something I'm still working on. So I'm really, really glad that I'm able to talk with you about it kind of
Yeah.
one-on-one. I'll take this as a bit of free training for myself.
Yeah, let's do it.
But so I love that. So I wrote those down. You have an offer and then you're marketing and then you're converting and then you have to fulfill. I think for me, the offer, like you say, is pretty easy because you create your website, you show a beautiful portfolio, and then it's like, all right, let's start fulfillment. And I can light anything, I can shoot anything, but if I don't understand how to get that into the right person's eyes, first of all, and then also how to make sure that we're the right match. And it's, like you say, it's matchmaking. It's not just like, hey, buy my stuff, I'm a great photographer. They don't care if you're a great photographer. They care if you can solve their problem. And their problem is they need visual imagery to sell something or to create an experience or whatever it may be. So I really like that. And I'm starting to learn this, but we can definitely dive into some of these. So real quick before we do, does this process, you said it can work for all creative fields, which I agree as far as like overarching, but how do these, or do you think they change from field to field in photography? Is this more for commercial photography specifically, or how would you, I guess, break that down for different genres for people who listen who might be interested in other things?
Yeah, so I break it down into two categories. It's either you're working with businesses or you're working with people. So are you like a brand videographer? Are you doing event photography? Are you doing product photography? Well, you're working with businesses here. The other category is consumers or customers, people. So this is B2C. This is you're doing weddings, you're doing family photos, stuff like that. Because the thing that changes between the two is the kind of marketing that you're doing, but everything else is kind of the same. So how you're actually getting in front of these leads is changing, but the other processes aren't. So it's the same 4-step system. What changes is how you market to these different people.
Real quick, can we break down those differences in marketing just so that as we go through the rest, people can kind of fill in their own, I guess, vision of how it works?
Yeah. So like with marketing, there's really 4 ways to reach new people. And I stole this from Hermosi's book, $100 Million Leads. And the 4 ways are warm outreach. So you can reach out to people that you know. So these are people like in your contacts list, your Instagram followers, people who already know you. And you can ask them like, hey, do you need the service? Do you know anyone who would benefit from this? So that's like one way to reach out to people. The second one is cold outreach. So this is like cold emailing people, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, reaching out to people that don't know you, you're a stranger to. You can get clients, you can get, not clients, you can get interested people that way. The third way is organic social. So you're posting content and it's being distributed to many people that already kind of know you, right? Now with algorithms these days, you can reach new audiences, but for the most part, they're people that already know you. So you're posting content to people that know you. And then the last way is paid advertising. So you're essentially posting content to people that don't know you and you're paying for that reach. So given that those are the only 4 ways that we can attract new customers into our business, we have to figure out which one works for us best. If we're working with brands, pretty much all of these work with brands. You can do warm outreach, you can do cold outreach, you can do social content, you can do paid ads. If you're working with people, from my experience, cold outreach is not a good way. Like if you're someone, let's say you're looking for a headshot photographer, if you get a cold email from someone trying to pitch headshots, like you're probably not going to respond to that, right? So like I wouldn't say cold email is a good strategy for working with people. But for working with brands, I think it's one of the best strategies. But that's really the only difference there. Now, in the other steps, like the offer, that's going to be slightly tweaked. The sales process, slightly tweaked. Fulfillment, pretty standard. But yeah, it's very, very similar because the stuff I teach comes from like first principles thinking. I think that's just from my science background. So it's largely applicable to almost any niche.
Gotcha. That's crazy that you mentioned niche because right here in my notes, the next thing is I have this. I know that just from watching you in the past and just refreshing myself on your content, that you talk about niching down a lot, which I think is very powerful. But I hear arguments on both sides. So do you have you seen those arguments, and what are your thoughts on them? Obviously, I know that you always preach to niche down, but would you say there's any situation where generalizing is helpful, or what are your thoughts on that?
So it's a nuanced answer depending on the person's situation. So like for my program, like we help people who are like anyone like under $10,000 a month, we can help. Depending on where you're at, if you're at 0 versus you're at like 5K a month, I would give you different advice on niches. So if you're just starting out, you're at 0, it's to your benefit to niche down as much as possible, because if you're not currently working with clients, there's zero trust. You don't have any trust built up. People see your portfolio, but there's no like proof behind you working with people. So in order to like get more trust, you can do that in a few ways. You can work with clients, which is hard, or you can like niche down further. So you're not just a generalist photographing products, weddings, landscapes, all this. You're focused on one category. And by focusing on one category, you're perceived as more of an expert in that one category. And it's hard to get this message to a lot of creatives. So the example I use, that I like to use, is like the doctor example. So there's like two doctors, like a general practitioner. They can like diagnose pretty much anything to like some degree. They know their stuff. They charge like they get paid like $200K a year, solid salary. Then like there could be a super niche doctor that is like a sports doctor that treats knee issues. And if you're like someone who has a knee problem, who do you think will help you in that situation? Well, obviously like the sports doctor here, because they're specialized in this one thing. They have more trust built up because that's all they do, and they get paid like $600K a year compared to this doctor who's making a lot less. And one is like super niche down, the other one isn't here. And that's really the differentiator there. Because when you niche down, clients are going to perceive you as an expert in that one category. So if you're niche down as a like food and beverage product photographer, you're going to appear as an expert to food and beverage brands who need product photos, because not only do they trust you to take the photos better, but they assume that you understand how their marketing might work or what kinds of problems they have, because their issues are probably, okay, our ads are not converting as well because of our creative, or our website has a high bounce rate because our hero image sucks, right? Versus if you're doing landscapes, families, and product photos, you probably don't have that specific knowledge around this. So you're perceived as less of an expert to those clients. Now I can get into part 2 of like when you might want to not niche down, unless you have a follow-up here.
No, that's perfect. I think the only follow-up I have would be, what advice would you give to people on choosing a niche? Because for me, I used to be like, well, I don't really have any interest outside of photography. Lighting and photography is my niche. But then, what I used to think was, well, maybe I need to have a hobby. So let's say for me, it was motorcycle, dirt bike racing. That's what I'm into. Like, maybe I would want to go shoot dirt bikes. But what I'm realizing is it's not niching down of things that you like necessarily. It's who you want to serve and who you enjoy working for could be a niche as well, because that's totally different than shoot. Like I wouldn't want to shoot sports because it's just tons of shooting, tons of culling. It'd be fun in the day, but then the editing would be not fun. So I guess real quick, let's talk about what advice you have on choosing a niche, and then we can dive into what your thoughts are on generalism.
Yeah, so I help creatives make money with their cameras, so that's where this advice is going to come from. This may not necessarily be the niche that you enjoy doing the most, but in terms of like choosing a niche, it's really important to figure out like what market you want to serve, and you want to make sure that this is like a growing market, not a shrinking market. So before you even like go into the niche, you want to make sure that you're serving a market that is ideally growing, and more importantly, they have money to spend with you. So like if you're a headshot photographer and you're trying to figure out if you want to niche down a bit more, should you go to college campuses and try and photograph college kids for their LinkedIn's for their first job? Or should you go target like corporate executives who've been doing this for a while? Like, which one do you think has more spending power? The corporate executive. So it would make more sense that you want to focus on that area. So like thinking through questions like that when choosing a niche, I think is really important. So choosing industries that have like spending power so that they can actually pay you what you're worth. And also industries that are growing so that you are in this game for a while. That's going to be important. And lastly, you want like a niche that has some sort of pain point associated with them. So like there are mainly like three pain points you can pick. There's like health, wealth, and relationships. Like historically, those are like the biggest pain points people have. So in terms of like a photographer, a product photographer is kind of in the wealth niche where they help people make money with their photos. So that's like one example. A different example that uses those three pain points would be a let's say headshot photographer for dating profiles. Like that one solves the relationships pain point. So trying to fit your niche into a pain point that has spending power that's like in a growing market is like the trifecta there. If you can do all three, awesome. If you can get like one or two of those, great. But there's a lot of people that have like zero of those and they wonder why they're struggling to get clients.
That's funny. So what I'm imagining is you want to market to older executives who are single, that want a relationship and might be a little bit overweight so that you can nail their all three of those.
That's pretty
funny. No, that's really good. That's really, really helpful. Actually, I wasn't expecting that answer at all, which is really good. I needed to hear that myself. So maybe what we can do is, as we jump into a little more of the systems, is give an example. So let's use your niche, which is food and beverage, or at least for Pieta Productions, right? Mm-hmm. So food and beverage, and you, I guess, just basically kind of lay out briefly your process so that we can have an example, a real life example of what you do.
At Pieta Productions, like the niche, we're in like food and beverage CPG space, and that niche like checks like all the boxes there. So CPG with like health foods, it's a growing market. People want healthier stuff. There's lots of cool CPG brands coming out all the time. So that's like a growing market, check. Do they have spending power? For the most part, like it's a pretty competitive space. So a lot of these companies have a lot of ad spend because they have to compete with each other. So they're going to be spending money on content, on advertising. So there is like spending power there. And like the pain point there is wealth. So these are companies want to make more money. So we solve for that with the niche. So that's essentially what how we fit into that. And really any product or brand or B2B creative fits into like that wealth category. You're helping businesses make more money with your creative. So that's like a real world breakdown of that niche right there. But that's like step one. That's like the offer, and just like a tiny sliver of the offer there too. But like after that comes the marketing process, like getting leads.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I remembered my question. So when you're researching markets, I guess, how do you even do that? Because as someone who doesn't have a background in business and someone who's very creatively driven and always struggled to kind of understand how marketing works in general, where do you even look to see if a market is growing, shrinking, worth pursuing or not? Like if you've never heard of doing market research, where would you start?
Yeah, I mean, 2025, just go to your favorite AI model and ask, whether it's like ChatGPT with search or whatever you're using, like any AI model that has the search feature. And now there's even like the deep search feature in a lot of them. That is the best place to like get pretty accurate information around like what's growing and shrinking these days.
That's smart. I didn't even think about that. That's super cool.
There's like a lot of tools that would make my job so much easier if I was going back and starting all over.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's great. So we'll utilize AI as much as we can for the good that it might have for us, for our benefit. That's great. So I guess then what we can do is, piggybacking off your example of your business, Pieta Productions, let's hop into pricing strategies. I think what would be really helpful is to give people some inspiration on how they can grow their business to 100,000 plus per year, doing, I guess, basically what it is that you would teach them to do. So let's hop into how would you go about pricing and your strategy, just an overarching thing, and then we can kind of dive in from there.
Yeah, pricing. This is quite the. It's a tough topic.
It could be a whole episode in itself, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I have hours and hours of content. This in our like main program, but really, this is like a question of charge your worth, in my opinion, because a lot of people like throw out the word like charge your worth. Like you should always be pricing yourself as like what you perceive your pricing to be, and I think that's kind of a flawed mentality because you don't really get to decide your rate. The market does. And like, yeah, you can say like how much you want to pay, but if no one's ever going to pay that, it doesn't matter if you say you charge your worth because no one's paying that. So we have to match we have to actually figure out a way to charge our worth the right way. What I recommend doing for pricing is using premium packages. A lot of photographers get stuck charging really low rates and competing on price. And this sucks because no one wants to compete on price. So the first thing to do is ditch hourly pricing and embrace either per asset or per package pricing. Hourly pricing is, in my opinion, a mistake because it ties how much you can earn to your time, which is fine at the start, right? If it takes you like 10 hours to do a shoot for a client, cool. You get paid like $100 an hour, 10 hours, that's $1,000. But then like over time, you're going to get better and you're going to get more efficient at your craft. So now it might take you 5 hours. So what do? Do you charge $200 an hour? Are you raising your prices on these clients? Are you working slow on purpose? Like it gets messy fast. So I recommend ditching the hourly pricing and embracing a per package pricing as soon as possible. So in order to do this, you have to build out packages that essentially solve clients' problems, because we don't want to just toss in like 10 photos in a package and call it $2,000. We want to actually have a package that has a unique that is unique to us. So it's not really comparable to other photographers, where we no longer get compared on price, but on value. So these packages are going to focus on how much value we can provide to the client. So in order to do this, we have to figure out like what the client wants. So we talked about niches in the past and about the pain points that we're solving. So if your pain point is you can't get dates on through your profile, well, that's what we're solving as a photographer. So that's the problem that we're solving. I'm a product photographer and a product videographer. So that's like the pain point I solve is low sales for clients, or lack of conversions on Facebook ads, or no brand awareness. Like with great photography and great videos, those are going to, hopefully I'm going to solve your problems through that. So we have to figure out what the actual problem is that we're solving. And if we can do that, we can charge premium rates, because we want to be charging like pretty solid rates for our projects, like at least $2,000. That's like what I recommend our clients, our members in Creative Biz Launch charge. But to do that, we need these like high ticket packages that include a lot of value outside of photos. So I talked about, yes, we're solving problems with our photography or videos, but on top of that, we include this like value stack that also includes like fast turnaround times, really fast client communication. We have a onboarding process where we really dive into their problems and make sure that they're in good hands. There's some sort of like risk reversal. So maybe even offering like a guarantee on like why you're so confident that you can solve this problem for a client. And by including like all these different components in your package, you're not just charging like $100 an hour anymore, or $100 a photo. You're charging like $5,000 for like 20, 30 photos. And you're not really charging for the photos, you're charging for the solution that you're offering through this entire package, through this value stack. And this is really, really hard to do. By no means is this easy, but I think this is the best way to build, like what you mentioned, like a 6-figure business, because we can charge a lot more, we can solve problems. And if we do this the right way, we're giving the client some sort of return on their investment, which makes them want to work with us over and over and over again.
Yeah, and you're giving yourself freedom to improve your process, make it faster without tying yourself to hours, like you said. And so maybe at the beginning, you can charge for solutions, and maybe you'll be, spending too much time on it and you kind of lose money, but you give yourself permission and the flexibility. You've positioned yourself to be able to improve that process, adjust your offerings and stuff like that. So you mentioned, I think I wanted to kind of piggyback on this. There's some, I think, fear around offering guarantees, or like being afraid that you don't provide the results that you promised to your clients. So what is your experience with offering guarantees or some sort of option that kind of relieves stress for the client and is less risky for them?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of guarantees, especially early on in building a business, because they just reverse like all risk in working with you, which is great. But then obviously like some people might abuse the guarantee, right? So there's always like a risk of that. But guarantees do a lot of cool things. One, they force you to become like a better photographer, a better videographer, a better service provider, because there's more skin in the game for you. So you're going to show up a lot better. You're going to develop your skill set better, both like your creative skill set and how you deal with clients, your client facing skill set, which is something really important. So it's going to force you to be the best possible service provider, which then gives them a better service, which then means they're going to give you a better testimonial, you're going to get them a better result, which might mean a better case study for you. They might tell more of their friends. So it kind of like snowballs into all of this because you offering a guarantee forces you to be better. And I think that's something that we should lean into as creatives. Like, we should try and be the best possible service provider for our clients. And that's how we're going to win in the long term, because repeat business is like the majority of my business in PR Productions. And by offering a guarantee, I force myself to execute like at the highest level. Now, concerning like the other benefits of like a guarantee, one is like obviously risk reversal. So you're going to get more clients because people are going to have less hesitation working with you because there's that guarantee aspect of it, right? Like, you go on Amazon, you can buy anything and return it. Same thing with like your business. Like, people are going to feel a lot better spending money with you because of that guarantee. So you're going to get just a bump in sales. And since you get a bump in sales, even if a few people take you up on that guarantee, you got that bump in sales. So the guarantee, like at the end of the day, you're still going to come out on top. Now, the tricky part is like with creatives, like our time is tied to what we're doing. So yeah, you might lose out on some time, but like overall, guarantees are a good move, especially when you're starting out. Now, like as you progress through your business, I recommend, I was just having a conversation today with like one of our members in the program, and she's been with me since like 2022, and she started off with a guarantee, then she didn't have one, now she wants one again. So the reason for like flip-flopping like this is, at the start, no one trusts you. No one wants to work with you. A guarantee makes people trust you and makes them want to work with you. Cool. But you're doing this for a while. You're busy now. You're fully booked up with shoots. It doesn't make sense to keep offering a guarantee because you're fully booked already. You've got repeat business and you're not really trying to get more clients at the moment. So maybe a guarantee isn't smart then. So you can just not offer it for a while. But then, like, let's say you want to scale, like you want to hire people, you want to maybe hire a virtual assistant to do some sales outreach for you, and you're trying to grow your business and maybe hire a second shooter to do stuff. Well, that's probably when I would recommend reintroducing a guarantee. And this is kind of the conversation I was having with her today. Because at this point, you've unlocked more resources in your business. You've got people on your team, so you've got more time. So offering that guarantee increases your sales once again because you can handle the increased volume. So it helps you out in the long run. So it's pretty situational depending on where you're at in business and like a ton of different factors. And it's hard to give like a one size fits all answer. If you're starting out and you can't get clients, it's a no brainer to offer a guarantee because you're already not getting clients. Like if someone pays you and then you have to refund them, you're still at zero. So you're at the same spot. You might learn from that mistake, but a guarantee usually is the right move if you're starting out.
Oh, that's smart. Okay. That's the first time I've heard someone mention that as you grow, you can stop offering the guarantee if you don't need it, which I think is really cool. But yeah, the whole idea of using a guarantee as a way to make yourself better, I think is the big takeaway for me, at least, is like it forces you to figure out your system, to do great work and to make them happy. And it keeps you accountable. And then there's always, we're not tied to the company as far as employees. So if they do abuse that and you don't enjoy working with them, you can fire that client and not work with them again, which is okay. It's just part of growing and part of failing. And I would say if you fail, it's probably good in that sense. So that's really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I'm of the mindset of get your failures out of the way as fast as possible so you can learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I've always struggled with is I've always been risk averse. Like I really hate taking risks. I've always been a very cautious person. Even though I raced dirt bikes, that was the one thing that for some reason just didn't hit that part of my brain. But I've always been that way. And I think even to this day, I'm that way. So maybe this isn't on our notes, but can you talk a little bit about your approach to risk? Because you said you're introverted, and I think maybe we're similar, but you have this tenacity to pursue business well and to pursue it properly. So what's your thought on risk and reward?
Yeah. When I started my business, I don't think I understood how hard it was going to be. So it was kind of like this blind optimism where there was risk, but I was so confident in myself that I didn't perceive that risk as like something that would ever affect me. And I think that was to a fault. And like looking back now, I think I probably might have done things maybe differently. I'm not really too big into hypotheticals, but I've had a weird relationship with risk because I grew up like super safe with everything. Like had a pretty like standard childhood. I don't know, like parents typical childhood. My parents were a bit overprotective, so I think I had like a natural inclination to rebel against that. So maybe I'm more prone to taking risks because of that. Um, but my relationship with risk, like I think there's this quote, I forgot who says it, but it goes, "Your life grows or shrinks in direct proportion to the amount of risk you're willing to take." So if you always want to play it safe, cool, but you should know that your opportunities are going to be capped. Versus if you're willing to take risks and put yourself out there and fail, you may have massive, massive opportunities, but you also might fail at a massive, massive level. So this really comes down to how much belief you have in yourself. And if you believe in yourself, well, then the risk is you don't really think about the risk because you know that eventually you're going to make it work no matter what. So the risk is just you got to get that out of the way as soon as possible. Those failures and the like deep, deep belief that you have in yourself will overcome all that risk. And I think that's how I've kind of operated because I have a feeling that like I know I'm going to be okay no matter what. Like the worst case scenario is never that bad. And that's something that I was telling myself when I was going full time in my business. Like if you actually break down the worst case scenario, at least for me, it wasn't that I was going to go sleep on the street if my business fails. It's I'm going to move back with my parents for a year and go back to corporate America, and 6 months later things will stay the same. So like thinking of like what the worst case scenario actually is and being like true to yourself about what that is, you'll realize that there's very little risk actually involved and the upside outweighs the risk like entirely usually.
That's great. No, that's really good. And I think it's something in Western culture that we've forgotten is that our culture is very comfortable. Most all of us have a comfortability in our lives. And I really look up to like immigrants who come to America and start businesses, and you see them succeed because they have no other option than to succeed. So if you take their mindset and you learn from them about kind of approaching with that level of tenacity, then I think, yeah, that just benefits you more. And that I need to hear that regularly for myself.
Yeah, that might be where I kind of got it from because both of my parents are immigrants from Poland, so they came here and I think they took like that big risk. So I guess I saw what they did and figured starting a business is easy compared to that.
Yeah, so you're second generation in, which makes sense. That's a really cool thing that I don't have experience in because my family homesteaded out here hundreds of years ago. You know, I'm many generations in, so I never saw that. But going back to that quote, let me know if this is the one. It says, "Your life grows or shrinks in direct proportion to the amount of risk you're willing to take," by Anais Nin. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think I heard that in like a Casey Neistat video a while ago and it really resonated with me.
That's super cool. I like that. Man, that's good. That's really inspirational. It kind of makes me want to just take a detour and get more inspirational towards the end. We've been recording for about an hour, so we should probably get close to wrapping, but there are a couple things that I'd love to dive into. And so let's go ahead and pivot real quick. Do you think it's possible for someone like me who lives in a small town to make a good living doing photography, or do you need to move to a metro area? I've heard mixed opinions on this.
Depends on your niche. So I started, I've done tons of different shoots. Like my first shoot ever was like a real estate shoot. I have like that $20 bill back there is from that job. I've worked with like local coffee shops, doing like some product photography, done headshots, all that stuff. So if your niche relies on you going on location and shooting businesses or photographing lots and lots of people, a small town is going to be not easy for you to succeed. Versus like product photography, like 95% of my product photography shoots, the clients ship the product to me. I'm in downtown Chicago, but if I was in like a small town, same thing. Like they ship it to me, I take the photos, we're good. So I could replicate like my business in a small town easily because of my niche. But if I was a event photographer, headshot photographer, whatever, like there's no way I would be able to do that in a small town. So it really depends on your niche. So choose wisely.
That's cool. No, I really like that. It's funny because I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be working with a business coach here pretty soon, and he has mentioned that that should be what I look into as well, a similar system to what you had. And this was before we were talking. And it was kind of funny when you messaged me, I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, this guy wants to be on my podcast who I've seen before, and he does exactly what you're saying I should probably do. So maybe I'll pick your brain, or I should strongly consider joining your boot camps and stuff like that, which I will let you talk about here in a second. But that's awesome. That's really cool. I think that's really good. I think just for the people who are listening, to understand who you are needing to serve that can fit your financial needs, your lifestyle needs, and finding those right people is really important. I think that's what Chris can help you do. Before we wrap up, let's just go through a couple other quick things, and then selfishly, maybe after we can chat a little longer if you have time.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I guess leaving off, we've gone through the entire system of your journey from, where you started, how you grew, how you transitioned into full-time photography, but we haven't talked about what it is that you are offering people right now, your next business endeavor that you launched kind of alongside your photography business, which is Creative Biz Launch and your Creative Biz Network and this whole thing. So tell the people about that and what it is you can do to help them, like you've already helped me today on this podcast.
Yeah, so the core mission of the business is to help you build a photo or video business that you can take full-time, scale to 6 figures. That is kind of like the core thing that we do. So among that, we talked through like the 4 steps of building that. So getting clear on your offer, which includes your niche, how to build out a great website, all that stuff, how to get that in front of the right people. So we have an outreach system and a social media system to help you with that. Then comes like the sales process. So I'm an introvert, so it's like a kind of introverted sales process, but follows a very clear and cut system for that. And then the 4th step is like the fulfillment process. So delivering the best results possible to your clients, which this all sounds pretty simple. The complexity is like in the details. So my main thing is we run a community of a lot of like my creative entrepreneurs. We have brand photographers, videographers, people from across different niches all across the world. In general, anyone between $0 and $10,000 a month in revenue will benefit from the program. If you're beyond that, we have one-on-one coaching for that. But it's really, we have courses, resources, templates, scripts, weekly coaching calls where you get direct access to me. We bring on community speakers, industry experts every single month in the program. But really, it's everything you would need to build out a 6-figure photo or video business. And that's kind of the promise. I've been doing this since December 2022 with this education company. What makes me different than other folks, because I can talk about this all day, and you can trust me or not, but we have like a mountain of proof that I don't think anyone else has. So like hours and hours and hours of case studies of people we've helped across various niches, all that stuff. So if you're at all interested, send me a message on Instagram. We could talk more.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just so everyone knows, and if you trust me as well, I can vouch for Chris. I haven't been a part of the platform, but I've seriously looked at it. And maybe this is the year I take him up on the offer. But I have seen the transformation from it, and I've seen the people who have entered and come out, and they're doing really well for themselves. And I think that's just a testament to the time you have spent over the years creating processes, which I think is huge, because process is super important in every aspect of life. But to have a business process that's tried and tested is worth its weight in gold instantly when you join. So just to vouch for that. So I guess to wrap up, I do a lightning round. Maybe if we have some time, we can blast through that. But for those who are ready to get back to their workday, what are 2 actionable steps that listeners can take to make a difference in their business today? And then I guess beyond that, what would you recommend would be a longer term goal?
Pick some way where you can get in front of your ideal customers and start doing that every single day. Most creatives don't take enough action to get in front of ideal customers or leads. So I would recommend either starting with outreach, so either email or messages through a platform like Instagram or LinkedIn, 5 to 10 a day, or posting content, at least 1 a day, that is targeted towards your ideal customer rather than like other photographers and videographers. So pick a method to get in front of your ideal customer and do that daily for 100 days in a row. After that, you're going to have paying clients if you commit to 100 days of that. So that is like the one thing to do. You said 2 things?
Yeah, I mean, if the one thing is enough, that's fine. If you have another bonus tip, you could throw that in.
Yeah, I think focusing more on the customer experience and the client once you land the client is really important. Most of your revenue is going to come from repeat business, and it's important to give the client the best experience possible, be very fast in your communication, fast in your turnaround times, almost to like a pain point. And if you do that for like your first few months of this while you're working with paying clients, you're going to stack up. You're going to have like a handful of like repeat clients that are going to help sustain you long term, so you can start doing other things, but really focusing on the customer journey and their experience is really important.
So maybe an easy way to think of that for someone who hasn't experienced this before from a vendor standpoint is think about your favorite restaurant or your favorite local business that you go frequent often and why you go back, and think of that feeling and how can you take that and I guess meld it into your process for the client to experience that same thing you've experienced in your own day-to-day life.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, I think we'll wrap up there. There's so much more we could talk about, and maybe we can have another podcast in the future or whatever. I don't know. But I just feel like there's so much more that Chris has to offer. So definitely check him out. We're going to have links to everything in the show notes. So I guess to close out, let's just roll out the red carpet for you. Tell everybody where you'd like them to find you, where they can stay connected. And we will wrap up after that.
Yeah, best place is YouTube or Instagram. I'm active on both, posting every week on YouTube, every day on Instagram, mainly educational content to help you guys grow. I run a free community teaching a lot of this stuff, how to create a great offer, how to position yourself, how to get that in front of people. That's Creative Biz Builders. And then also my paid group for anyone that wants to move faster. But the free place is a great place to start for anyone who wants to take your camera skills and make money from it.
Dude, that was really awesome. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Yeah, those were amazing questions. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining in on this episode of the Lumi University podcast. I hope that Chris's advice was well received and that you're able to glean a lot of value from what he had to say. The guy's a genius. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to business and increasing your rates and getting a sustainable system that you can practice regularly to make sure that your income is always coming in. So definitely check out all of the links in the show notes to Chris's stuff. He's got amazing resources, free ones and also paid ones if you want to go further. Check out his YouTube channel, tons of great free advice there as well. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Of course, head over to lumiuniversity.com to get your free portrait lighting guide. Don't forget about that. And subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so that you are notified for every single future podcast episode. Thank you again for joining, and I will see you in the next one.